Happy 4th of July, everyone. It's Cyanize here, and one of my favorite things to celebrate every year when this holiday comes around is my freedom of choice. And in regards to game key cards, it's the freedom to choose not to buy them. Alright, but being for real though, yeah, we are talking about the game key cards again. Now, I made a video on this a month ago, kind of before the Nintendo Switch 2 dropped. In my opinion, hasn't really changed on them at all for the most part, as well as a lot of your guys' opinion as well. We hate these things. These things are stupid. I mean, why buy them when you can buy digital? But a lot of news has come out since that video. Apparently, Nintendo is only offering certain sizes of cartridges for third-party publishers to use. So basically, they're offering a 64GB card, which is pretty massive for a lot of games, or you can get the game key card. And yeah, you know, hearing that size, you could probably see why a lot of publishers are opting for the game key card. I mean, yeah, who in their right mind would get a 64GB card for Bravely Default? That being said, I think it's also interesting as well because you have a game like Mario Kart World, which is around 25GB if I remember correctly, and it's on a 64GB card. There are 2/3 of storage not being used on this cartridge. What is Nintendo thinking? Why isn't there any other options? Now, I've heard theories that apparently this size is to ensure that the cartridges run faster and that the load times are quicker. I'm not a tech wizard. I don't understand how this stuff works, but there's got to be some smaller option. You don't need that many gigs to have a game run faster. I mean, isn't that what the SD card is for? I don't know. Nerds in the comments, please inform me. What is going on here? That being said, we're not going to really focus on the cartridge sizes here. Today, we're going to be talking about the investment meeting that Nintendo had with their investors as well as third-party publishers in regards to how well the game key cards have sold. Because I think this is very interesting, and it kind of blew my expectations out of the water. Because honestly, I expected game key cards to sell pretty much on par with regular games for the most part, but it turns out that game key cards are selling very poorly, and the only third-party game that's been selling well is Cyberpunk 2077, and you know, it is a big game, but it's kind of interesting how out of all the third parties, that game is selling the best, and it happens to be the only game where the whole game is on the cartridge. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? But anyways, I want to dive into the meat and potatoes of this investment meeting. So we're going to go over to Nintendo Life here, and they took out some interesting quotes from that investment meeting that I think we can highlight and have a conversation about here. So let's get into it. And one of the investors had this to say. I've seen opinions on the internet saying that game key cards are unappealing, the investor said. I'm concerned that if third-party titles using game key cards don't sell well, it will discourage third parties from supporting the Switch 2. And I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. Interesting enough, though, they highlight the internet's response to game key cards as one of the main reasons as to why they're a little concerned with the game key cards. Not so much like the initial reveal of them, kind of just people's reaction to them. And, you know, I was watching Beat 'em Up's video the other day. I'm probably going to talk about that video later on. It's a really good video. You guys should check it out. But a lot of people outside of the dedicated fan base didn't really seem to have a problem with game key cards because it was kind of a new concept. I mean, obviously you've had digital download games or games with a code in a box or games that had part of the game on the card and then made you download the rest. But the way Nintendo marketed it and the way Nintendo presented it, it was kind of brand new. It was kind of an unknown variable, to quote Beat 'em Ups in his video. So needless to say, a lot of investors, as well as, you know, a lot of the dedicated fans and whatnot, they didn't really see a problem with it per se. It was too soon to judge whether or not they would be successful or not. But now one of the investors are seeing the reaction from dedicated fans, and suddenly they're having second thoughts. And by the way, I don't see a really good time to talk about this, so I guess I'll just throw this in right now. Yeah, I'm really surprised the game key cards aren't selling that well. I really thought that they were going to sell regardless and people wouldn't care or notice a difference. But again, quoting that Beat 'em Up's video, he made a point to say that, yeah, Nintendo fans just really love collecting stuff. Out of all the companies, Xbox has kind of moved towards Game Pass and digital games and whatnot. Sony's kind of an in-between, but Nintendo has always been about collecting stuff. They still sell Amiibo. Their physical games are still a thing. Like, Nintendo's always, even back in the day, even the nostalgia aside, always been about collecting. And so when you have a plastic box with a cartridge that maybe has something on it. I don't know. Probably doesn't even have anything on it. It's just a key to get the digital download online. It's kind of a slap in the face to a lot of collectors, including myself. And I definitely get that from dedicated fans, why they would be a little put off by this new concept or idea. But I didn't think the casual fan base would follow suit. I thought they would just buy this anyway and wouldn't give it a second thought. But it appears that is not the case. And it sucks too, because this is launch month. This is like the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. This is like the best time to be selling games, because a lot of people are going to go to their game store, go to buy the game, and they're going to be like, I got Mario Kart World, but I also want something else to chew on here. So, we got Cyberpunk, then we got Yakuza 0, got Shadow Gens, Bravely Default. We got all these cool games you can play, and everybody just got Cyberpunk because it's the only one that didn't want to spit in your face and actually respected your time and money. And it probably also helps that the game is pretty huge and well known, and people want to see a big game like that running on the console. And out of all the games that came out on day one outside of Mario Kart, Cyberpunk was definitely going to be the best seller out of the third parties. But I still think it's interesting that none of the other third parties are even competing for Cyberpunk's place. I don't know. I was talking about it with a friend on the Discord server the other day, but I feel like the only other game that could have possibly rivaled Cyberpunk 2077 on launch day would have been Final Fantasy VII Remake, which we still don't really have a release date for. But oh my god, if Nintendo could have secured that for launch day, I feel like it would have been a way heftier launch day than what we already had. Not to say that this launch day wasn't bad per se, but I feel like it could have been even bigger in regards to third parties. But back to the investment meeting itself, Furukawa, the president of Nintendo, did have something very interesting to say in regards to the matter, so we will read it off right here, right now. We introduced the game key card because game file sizes are larger on the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1. The company president responded, "We have various ways to distribute games on the Switch 2, and we are working with our third-party partners to ensure their support for our platform." Yeah, I gotta say, that is the most corporation BS response I've ever heard. Clearly, there's definitely something going on behind the scenes in regards to them not being able to give third-party publishers other options in regards to cartridges, but I think it's just really interesting that Furukawa has nothing to say in regards to the failure of game key cards. But I do really hope that after this, after the investors kind of slap him in the face with this reality check, that Nintendo kind of drops the idea of game key cards or slowly dwindles with them. I don't know. I hope I never see another game key card coming out of a Nintendo Direct, or a cloud game for that matter. I hope we just see games on cartridges again, because that always mattered to me. But I also get it from the third party or indie developer side. I mean, why would I want to put a 1GB game on a 64GB card? Like, that's just insane. And I feel like even if they do come up with a solution to get a cheaper card size, it just seems like they can't get anything smaller for these things. So I feel like unless your, series is just a huge thing, unless you're CD Projekt Red or your Square Enix, I feel like you're just not going to get a physical edition, unfortunately. I feel like we're slowly driving away from physical editions. I don't feel like Nintendo's ever going to get rid of physical copies. I have to keep reminding myself, Nintendo is all about collecting stuff. They still release Amiibo, and I kind of wish they would release like sales numbers on Amiibo, because I don't think Amiibo sell that well. There's no way. If they sell that well, I'm going to be so surprised, but I don't think they do that great in the grand scheme of things, especially with the recent Switch 2 wave of Amiibo that aren't doing well. I made a video about it last week, by the way, go watch that. I do think physical games are here to stay. I think they're safe, especially first party wise. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of, but third parties, especially indie games, I feel so bad for the indie games. And I mean, if Capcom with Street Fighter couldn't even get this game on the cartridge, or probably just didn't want to pay that much for it, because I don't blame you, then what's that to say about, Koei Tecmo or something like that? I don't know why I thought Koei Tecmo. That was the first thing that came to my head. But it also does make me wonder as well, because these cartridges are really expensive to produce, I would imagine. So how are they producing these less than 64GB games onto their own cartridges and not eating up costs from that? Is that why Mario Kart World is $80? I feel like that would make sense in hindsight, but they gave a totally different reason for that with variable pricing, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, and I just did a quick Google search as well. Donkey Kong Bonanza's 8.5GB of storage. Not even like a 14th. I don't know if I'm doing math right. Dude, that's not even 10GB of the 64GB. That's not even 1/6 of the file size. Like, Oh my god. Like, I do respect them for being able to compress these pretty seemingly large games into these cartridges. I think that is the coolest thing Nintendo's ever been able to do. But what does it matter when you're producing these massive cartridges and you have no other smaller alternatives? Like, you would think they would try to make a cheaper alternative, not only for themselves, but the third parties as well. There's no way this is not eating up costs for everybody. I don't understand what's going on here. And again, this is where I need the nerds to come into the comments and explain this for me. Does the gigabytes really need to be that big for the cartridges to load faster, to run faster? Because I don't think it needs to be. I think you could have like a cut. I think you could cut that in half and it would still run just as fast, if not faster. But with all that said, I do kind of get why they made the game keycards if this was the only cartridge size that they had to offer. I mean, think about it. Outside of Cyberpunk and Mario Kart World, the Nintendo Switch 2 lineup, especially if you went to like a Best Buy or something, would have been completely barren. There would have been pretty much no games to buy. There would have been no shelf life at all. And I mean, yeah, the Switch one had like Breath of the Wild, Snipper Clips, and 1-2 Switch. It had a couple of things you could do on it day one, but I feel like it's a little bit more excusable considering, well, for one, Breath of the Wild is just the biggest game of all time. And I mean, sure, Mario Kart World is also pretty big, but it's not going to ever hold a candle to Breath of the Wild. You know, you saw somebody playing Breath of the Wild, you wanted to get a Switch 2 for that. You know, you see somebody playing Mario Kart World and you're like, I'll get it eventually. You know, Mario Kart World is a really good game and I'm enjoying my time with it. But, you know, if I was a casual guy, if I saw somebody playing Mario Kart World, I wouldn't want to go spend $450 and then $80 on top of that to play the game. I just feel like Mario Kart World's only doing good because it's Mario Kart and because there's a multiplayer aspect to it, not because it's, you know, genre defining or doing anything crazy. And I feel like that's kind of the major difference between the Switch 1 launch and the Switch 2 launch. The Switch 1 launch, they could get away with the fact that they had one of the biggest games ever on their hands. But with the Switch 2, you have a whole library and Mario Kart World to play with. So, you know, there's not like there's nothing to do. There's some people out there complaining that they're already bored with their Switch 2. And I kind of get that. But, you know, for people like me who actually work a job, sorry, I know that's a scary term for some people to hear. You know, I have a massive backlog of games I want to get through, okay? So I have plenty to do with my Switch 2. And with the other factor of, oh, wow, look, your Switch 1 games actually run like they were supposed to now on Switch 2. Look at this cool thing that's probably only going to last you a week and then the novelty's going to wear off. But yeah, back to game keycards. I do think we are going to have to suffer through game keycards for probably another year or two until Nintendo comes up with a solution for third parties to get a smaller cartridge size. I don't see them throwing away game keycards right away, especially when they made a whole deal about it and how this is like a new way of experiencing video games. I definitely see them stop making them and slowly stop producing them after people's reaction to them, which I'm glad. Again, I'm so glad the investors are calling out Nintendo's BS on this because, yeah, I don't want to buy them. Don't shove them in my face because I will not buy any of them. I will just buy them all digitally. I do think we're going to still have to suffer a year or two, though, of game key cards. I'm just going to have to hope that this game key card thing doesn't affect some of your favorite games, but time will tell. But do let me know what you guys think about the game key card situation down in the comments below. I read all of them. Would love to have a conversation down there. Stay hydrated, stay cool, and I will see you all in another video. Bye-bye!